just like that. And I'm making sure that it's staying flat. I'm just guiding it back and forth with this hand, keeping it just loose, and it's not a problem. And we've already started to wear away the back of this chisel, and I'm going pretty deep on this chisel, just the way I set it up. I don't particularly mark off or pay super strict attention to how deep I'm going on the chisel. I just want to make sure that I get at least that last half inch nice and flat. Alright, so that's the DMT. It's a great tool. I really like it. It's this one's new to me, but so far I'm really pleased with it. Alright, now the Waterstones, this is my 8,000 grit. I've got a 250, 1,000, and a 4,000 again. So this chisel I've already taken to my 250, so we can take it to the 1,000 grit now. Let me clear some of this mess out of here. Great, so I have soaked this in water for about a half hour before I've used it. Give it a quick spray so that I can bring some of that nice slurry to the surface as I'm working this. I'll do the same thing I would do on the DMT, and really for any of my chisels this is exactly what I do. New, old. Once I've done this though, there's really no need to go through all the grits on the back again, because once it's flat, unless you snag a nail or drop your tool onto the concrete or something. The back should stay nice and flat. So it's labor intensive, especially with a new tool, but really only at first. Once you get these nice and sharp, then it's just honing and maintenance. And you can see where this 1,000 grit stone has put a scratch pattern across the back of this chisel. And you can see it was high where that scratch pattern is, and it's a little bit low at the tip, which means it needs some more work. So we take it here, and if you come up a grit and you find that it's really bad, you can go back down to the previous grit. Just clean off your tool and go back down and work again until you get it nice and flat. And depending on how you're working this tool, an even scratch pattern on the back doesn't necessarily mean it's flat. So pay strict attention when you look at this in the light, and make sure that your scratch pattern is that grit's scratch pattern all the way across the back. So you can see this one almost turned the back of this milky. Great, so we keep working this. I need a little more water. And you can start to see some of that swarf come to the surface, along with some of the clay matrix and the cutting medium. So it gives you that nice slurry. So you continue to work this chisel. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Now like I said, we already worked the 250. That was the 1,000. Now we'll take it up to 4,000. And it's really important when you're sharpening chisels that you go through all the grits you have. And if you're not getting a keen edge on your tool, you might want to add a couple grits in between. Really what you want to do is work on this stone. You want to work the scratch pattern off that this stone made. So you're slowly making finer and finer scratches on the back of your chisel. Now for the back I'll probably only go to 1,000 for now. Then we'll start to sharpen the bevel. And as I go up, we'll chase the burr, which as I can already feel a little wire burr across the very tip of this tool. From sharpening the back on this 1,000 grit, it worked a little bit of that metal up over the edge, and I can feel that wire burr with my finger across the edge. Your finger is capable of feeling about 1/1000th of an inch, if not even a little less. So you'll definitely feel the burr once you work it up enough. Alright, and some people don't even take the back up this far. I like to put a little bit of a polish on it. There, see, this stone's cutting very fast. So we've already got swarf and slurry. Great, and you can see where we're starting to work off the scratch pattern from the previous stone. Alright, So I would continue to work this back until I got a nice, even, flat scratch pattern across the back. Alright, so let's say we've got the back on this nice and polished from our 1000 grit. Now actually, before we go to that, I'll probably take the bevel. I've already taken the bevel on this plane up from my 250 and 1000. I'll show you on the 4000 grit here a hand honing method for the bevel. A little bit of water. Alright, now we've got a heel and a toe on this bevel. The heel is further this side and the toe is the tip. So this chisel is flat ground, meaning it's a flat surface all the way from the heel to the toe. On a hollow ground chisel, there would be a concavity in the bevel of this chisel from the grinding wheel going over it. So there would be a high spot here at the heel and a high spot at the toe, and the rest of that would be like the inside of a spoon, kind of concave. So because this is flat, I can feel it rest real solid on there. And a hollow ground is basically the same thing. You can feel the heel hit, and you can feel the toe hit, and it kind of clicks in. Except on a hollow ground, you're taking off a lot less material. I use flat ground on some of my heavier duty chisels. I find it holds an edge a little better with a flat ground if I'm going to hit these with a mallet. For some of my paring chisels, you know, they're hollow ground. And some of my field use everyday kind of chisels are hollow ground, just because I can quickly put an edge on them. Because there's a lot less material, they're a lot faster to hone and a lot faster to sharpen the bevel. So we set the heel on the stone, rock it forward till I feel the toe. Great. Kind of feel it click in there. And then with even pressure on these two fingers, I just guide this back. And as I'm guiding it back, kind of rock back in my seat. It's almost an ab workout. Not quite. There you go. You don't want to bring this back like this, because then you round over this nice sharp edge you're putting on your tool. And if you rock it back the other way, you're going to round over the heel on there and not touch the toe to the stone, which is your most important part there for getting this nice and sharp. So we just continue to draw back. There we go. And I do a motion for this where I only pull to myself. Some people will go forward and backward and forward and backward. I find sometimes it catches and I'll roll the end of the chisel, which is not beneficial. And as you're working on these stones, I'll work all the way across the surface. So I'll start pulling here and work my way across, so that I try to get some even wear on this stone, so that I'm not just wasting one edge or the other. It also reduces the amount I have to flatten these. So, keep pulling. Yeah, great. And already you can see where we started to polish the surface on this chisel. Right here on this bevel, you can see where it's starting to get polished. Alright, so we set this stone aside. Now I move on to this 8000 grit. This again is a synthetic stone, but it still requires what's called a Nagura stone. Now this stone helps work up a slurry onto this stone, because this stone is a fine grit and it's very hard, it's very slow cutting. So in order to loose some of the matrix, the clay matrix, and pull off some of the cutting abrasive, I need another stone, which is also wet. I soak this in water, and I just work in a circular motion over the top of my 8000 grit. There we go, and you can start to see kind of a milky slurry on the top. So you know it's good. There we go. Just a little bit of water. Great. We'll do the same thing. Now again, normally I would be standing for this. It's a little easier to stand, but for the video, to get it all in the frame, I'm sitting. So normally I'd want to be over top of my work. This makes it a little difficult to draw back while I'm this low at the table. Great, and that's already starting to polish that surface. So I'd probably take it another 15 or 20 times over this stone. And then I can start to feel a wire burr on the back. So as I work that burr and I've started to polish this bevel nice, I'll take it to this stone, and then I can feel that burr across the bevel. So I just start chasing the burr back and forth. And when I work that burr off, I've got a nice sharp edge, then I know I'm using my cutting medium correctly. Now with this freehand method, it's just practice makes perfect. Like I said, I will have a separate video specifically for a cutting jig like this. There are many manufacturers that make this. Lie-Nielsen makes one, Waterstones makes one. There are several others. I'll be reviewing and demonstrating the Waterstones, but the concept is the same for a lot of these. It just helps you set an angle automatically, and you draw back your tool over the surface of your stone, and it just maintains that perfect angle all the time. This method is great, this freehand method, for field sharpening when I don't always feel like dragging along the jig. It's quick, it's efficient, and really for a woodworker just starting out, freehand is great because you don't have to spend the money on the jig. It's just one more thing you gotta have around in the shop. The only real reason I keep that around is for setting up new tools and working on antique tools, or if I've got a bevel that I've really messed up with freehand, which happens, I'll reset it with the jig. As you can see though, they are very messy. So that is one drawback to Waterstones. I've got a surface here that I really don't care about, which is why I'm using my Waterstones on this this bench here. But if you're using a nice workbench, or you're working inside at your kitchen table, you might want to put down a plastic mat, or even the top to a bin or a tub, just to help keep some of the water and the slurry off your work surface. So put this back in the water. I'll just let it rinse off. I don't normally store the 8000 grit in water again. That'll come out and it'll dry, and I'll put it back in the water about a half hour before I'm ready to sharpen with it. Put this Naguro away. Thanks for joining me today. The next video will be on oil stones, another whetstone, and then we'll follow up with some other techniques, including sandpaper sharpening, which I've gotten a couple emails about already. We'll go into a lot of detail on that. We'll go into detail on the jig. I've got a tri-hone system and a couple of powered methods. I'll show you the grinding wheel, and hopefully by the end of this you'll have some sharp tools that you can woodwork with, and I might too, which would be great. If you got any questions or comments, please email me at polthausworkshop@gmail.com. Check out the blog. There's all kinds of posts, pictures, and videos. That's at www.polthaus.com. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on Polthaus Workshop.